This is a Soviet ration card. It entitles you to 300 grams of bread if you are a manual labor. If you were to lose this ration card, it's tantamount to a death sentence. Imagine you live in a city that's completely cut off from the rest of the world for nearly 900 days. There's no food, and in many occasions, no running water. The weather is turning cold, extremely cold, in fact, minus 30 degrees. And under all these circumstances, you are bombarded by German shells every single day. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Harry's Book Cafe. Today, let's talk about Anna Reid's Leningrad. Before we dive into the review of the book, let us first of all talk about the historical context. Now, many people is quite familiar with Stalingrad. Okay, that is the definitive battle of the Second World War on the eastern end. In fact, when the Germans failed to take the city, it became the turning point. Not just in the Eastern Front, but the entire Second World War. Leningrad, however, on the other hand, was relatively unknown. However, the city suffered one of the biggest casualties of all Soviet cities. The starvation alone killed nearly 700,000 people. That's nearly 1 million people died. And yet, for most of us, Leningrad is very unfamiliar. If I change the name of Leningrad to a different name, I'm sure you will recognize the city right away, and that is St. Petersburg. Okay, so Leningrad was St. Petersburg, and the second largest city in Russia, the old capital of Russia, and also one of the most beautiful cities in Europe. It was under siege for 900 days. Anna Reid's Leningrad is not just a narrative non-fiction about the siege itself. It is also a study of human nature, how humans can possibly survive in the most dire of circumstances. Published after the new material was made available after the collapse of the Soviet Union in the late 90s, Reid's re-examined the siege through interviews, NKVD or the previous KGB, files, as well as extensive survivors' diaries. The result is intimate, upsetting, but at the same time clarifying. She opens the scene with the encirclement of Leningrad in September 1941, then moves through the collapse in rationing, as well as the mass death during the first winter, the Lake Laguda, as well as the uneven recovery, ending with the liberation and politics of remembering. First of all, why didn't the German army took Leningrad as it did other cities? Now, the reason for that is because, as we have already established, Leningrad is St. Petersburg, and the city is considerably larger than many of the cities the German army has taken before. Now, to minimize German casualties, the generals decided to surround the city and starve the population to death. That's reason number one, to minimize German casualty. Reason number two is because if they were to occupy the city, they are then responsible for the food supply to the occupied. And that was something that the German army was unprepared to do. Because of this and many other factors, they decided to make a siege strategy. Now, the Germans at the time was very overconfident because so far their eastern adventure has been met with very little resistance. Victory after victory made the Germans overconfident, and they believed that the city can be starved to death within a year or so. As it turned out, as we have already established, the siege lasted nearly 900 days. What really impressed me of this book is Anna Reid's ability to splice grand policies with intimate personal details. Bread adulterated with sawdust. Family navigating rationing cards. The quiet violence of bureaucracy. She questioned the neat myth of post-war and contradict Soviet propaganda with actual diaries. The diaries really add weight to her academic argument and really give us a sense of what life was under siege. I'm going to give you some quotes, but before I do that, quick trigger warning, some of those quotations can be a little bit distressing. This is a diary written by a teenager girl. She was 12 at the time the diary was written. 28th December 1941. At 12:30 a.m., Zanya died. 25th of January 1942 at 3 p.m., Granny died. 17th March at 5 a.m., Luyaka died. 13th of April at 2 a.m., Uncle Vasily died. 10th of May at 4 p.m., Uncle Luyasha died. 13th May at 7:30 a.m., Mama died. The families are all dead. Everyone is dead. Only me is left. This quote I'm about to give you involves a husband going to the bread queue, and the instance happened whilst he was queuing. So the husband's name is Dima. Dima found a large crest trampled in the snow, but a boy torn the crest out of his hands. He chewed it, this horrendous brat smacking his lips and drawing saliva. Dima went mad. He grabbed the boy by his collars and began to shake him, not realizing what he was doing. The boy's head wobbled on his thin neck like a rag doll's, but he kept on hurriedly chewing with his eyes closed. "It's gone! It's gone, look!" he shouted suddenly and opened his mouth wide. Now, as you can probably imagine, a city under siege for that long, the central theme, therefore, of the book is one of hunger. It threads through every chapter till the end. Hunger was something that's constantly on people's mind, and there's one particular chapter where the symptoms of real hunger, those fatal kind, was described quite vividly. The physical symptoms of starvation. For a long time, I have wanted to write down what a person emancipated from starvation experience. You sleep very little, 6 or 7 hours. Throughout the night, you constantly pull up your covers and tuck them in, for you are always cold. The cold pours along your spine and whole body. Your protruding bones ache, forcing you to keep changing positions. All the time, you are tormented by hunger. You can feel the emptiness of your stomach and conversantly swallow your own saliva. It is difficult to perform any sort of physical movement, even the most insignificant. Before turning over in bed, you take a long time to gather your strength. You procrastinate, put it off. In your mind, you repeated the necessary sequence of actions over and over again before actually committing to them. The morning arrives and it's very hard to overcome in your inaction, to get up and get dressed. During the day, your movements are slow and careful. Despite wearing warm clothes, you feel chilled and are dogged by an unpleasant sensation of noise in your ears. Your own breathing and speech resonate as if in an empty vessel. Your feet swell and deep cracks form in the skins of your finger. You exist on the sideline of everything going around you. In the canteen, for example, you meet a friend, a colleague, and don't have the energy even to say hello. You look at him expressionlessly, and he returns the same look. Why waste strength on words? I really enjoyed reading about what happened during the war. However, there are a lot of passages that really scared me, and those passages are always concerned about breaking down of personal relationships, especially between husband and wife and mother and child. Now, there are two really memorable paragraphs, and one of them is that the wife is suspecting her husband is stealing food while she's away, and she came back one day early and caught her husband in the act, and she, without hesitation, became a different person entirely and punching him savagely. Another paragraph also describing a different couple, a husband and wife. They see each other no longer as loved ones, but as a competitor. And because of this, they can no longer stand each other. And one of the description was that even though they were wearing great coat when they are sleeping, they cannot suffer the feeling, the sensation of each other's touch, even through the great coat. And another paragraph, perhaps even more disturbing, was describing a child, a 10 years old boy, who accidentally lost his ration card, and that equals pretty much to a death sentence. The mother, on the other hand, was, instead of the screaming and shouting, she doesn't have the strength. All she was doing is eating her own ration of bread and telling whoever is looking on that he lost the card and therefore he must suffer his own consequences. So the instinct, the natural instinct of being a mother was diminished and lost. She couldn't care less about her 10-year-old child. All she could think about is eating her own bread as fast as she can before her child can take it away from her. That, as you can imagine, really scared me badly, but also put me in a contemplative frame of mind. I started to ask myself a very similar question. Would I behave the same way as those couples did if I were in the same situation? Would I have behaved the same way? Would I have behaved the same way towards my daughter, eating my ration and as fast as I could before she can take my out of my hand? I'd like to answer in the negative. No, 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 I would not behave in this way. However, although my answer was sincere, it cannot really be the truth until I'm putting into that position myself. None of you can, none of us can. I can't really answer that question with 100% certainty that that will be the way I behave. And perhaps I'm holding up a mirror. That paragraphs hold up a mirror towards my face. It made me really looking at myself. What sort of human am I? I enjoyed the book absolutely tremendously. I think it's taught me not just about the things that I didn't know I was ignorant about Leningrad and the siege. And it really, as I've said, made me question human nature, my own nature. If I have to give one negative thing about this book, is that the horrors experienced by the survivors was so relentless at times that the chapters feels as if they are blending together. One chapter feels the same as next. It's just this never-ending horror. There's never-ending struggle. Would I recommend this book? Absolutely, to anyone who is interested in the Second World War and Soviet history in particular. And also to anyone just like me who are perhaps a little bit ignorant of that part of the history, that part of the war. This is something that I definitely would highly, highly recommend. It's really well written. Anna Reid clearly done her research. A tremendous amount of research to be able to produce something so comprehensive and so well written. I would give it 9 out of 10. This is definitely one of my best narrative non-fiction of the year for sure. But before you pick up the book, however, just one last trigger warning. Because of the hunger that's constant in the city, there were quite vivid descriptions of cannibalism, so just bear that in mind if you want to pick up the book. Alright guys, I hope you have enjoyed this episode, and I will see you in the next episode. And because the subject matter of this particular review can be a little bit heavy, so next one I'll make sure that I bring something a little bit more light-hearted. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Cheerio.